Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Political Job Interview, where I interview candidates running for election. I'm VCalla, the host, and today I take on the role as the boss, giving a job interview to today's candidate, Mary Kidnew. Mary is running for election to the House of Commons as the Green Party candidate for Mississauga Lakeshore. Thank you, Mary, for your time, and thanks for joining me today.
Vincenzo, thank you so much for inviting me. This is fantastic.
Well, it's so great to have you, and without further ado, let's get this job interview started.
Okay.
So, as with any good job interview, I'm going to start off with an opportunity to learn more about Mary. So, the first question, Mary, is can you tell me a bit about yourself and your story?
I'd love to. So before I get into that, I'd first like to acknowledge that the lands on which I live, play, and work are the treaty lands and territory of the Mississauga of the Credit. For thousands of years, this land was inhabited and cared for by the Anishinaabeg, the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and the Ojibwa Chippewa peoples. Also to the home to the Métis, and most recently the territories of the Mississauga of the Credit First Nation, who are direct descendants of the Mississaugas of the Credit. I am grateful to have the opportunity to borrow and learn to care for this land, and by doing so, give my respect to its first inhabitants. And I'm not, I need to let you understand that so much about me is actually about my writing. So I'd love to tell you a little bit about Mississauga Lakeshore itself. We have a beautiful riding. It's been my home for over 40 years, and it hugs the shores of beautiful Lake Ontario and is divided, and the lake is actually divided almost in half, or the riding's divided almost in half at the lake by the beautiful Credit River. So I'm surrounded by towering trees and incredible wildlife and lots of water. Yeah, so that's a little bit about the riding itself. I've focused the last 20 years of raising my family and engaging in the community. I have an extensive employment background. That's always an interesting one in advertising and also being a trained carpenter and many jobs in between, bookkeeping, training. I was self-employed for a while, hospitality industry, along with residential construction. My volunteer work is where my passion lies, though. I'm presently involved, sorry, in 4 volunteer organizations, and in the past, within the last 20 years, up to about 8 or 9 of them.
So, you've been involved with that, and you're right, you have such a beautiful riding. Don't remember the last time I was down there. I think it was about a year ago now, just about a year ago, and it's such a great place. You have so many beautiful areas, and it's a great developing area too. There's lots of development going on in your riding. But I wanted to ask you now, why have you decided to run for this position? Like, why did you decide to run for the Green Party? Why did you decide to run in this by-election? Why did you decide to run for Mississauga Lakeshore? Why?
Oh boy, this story goes, it's going to take maybe a little longer than you want your interview to go.
No worries.
Um, I was not a green voter most of my life. I guess maybe most people weren't since their numbers aren't so big. But in 2019, I voted green for the first time, and I was like, I think my values align with where this party's at. I think it's time for this party to move forward. I want to give them my support. So in 2019, I voted green for the first time. And then 2020, a pandemic hit, right? And I had time to stop and reevaluate and really assess what was going on. And so I threw myself in, like I do in many roles throughout my community. And I decided I wanted to volunteer. I wanted to get involved and volunteer with the Green Party. So I became a member. I signed up to volunteer. I went to a volunteer orientation. And in that orientation, they said, the best way to volunteer with our organization is with your electoral district association. I then found out my riding didn't have an electoral district association for the Green Party. So I, along with a group of 4 other incredible women, formed the organization. And I sat as CEO for the last, I guess, a year and a half or a year and a bit prior to this election, the by-election being notified. But within 2 years, we have faced 2 election cycles as a small, very new and fresh EDA. I was fortunate last year to work alongside Elizabeth Robertson. She was our Green Party candidate for the 2021 election. And I was able to work alongside her. I learned a lot. It was my first time ever being involved in an election campaign. Like on the ground, I was coordinating volunteers, door knocking, canvas organization. It was really fun. I really enjoyed the process of the campaign. And when our MP resigned and I knew the by-election would be called, I reached out to Elizabeth. She was unable to run. And I think then and there I decided, well, I think that's a calling that I need to step forward and do this. I don't know if that's a good or long story. I might have stretched that a little.
Well, it's definitely interesting, sometimes you don't know what's going to happen, and this by-election sort of came out of nowhere. We still don't know the date of well, at least at the time of this filming. We don't know when the by-election is going to be happening, probably within the next little while, hopefully, but we don't know the exact date yet. It hasn't been called. So it's a lot of preparation, I'm sure, on your end.
Yeah,
So
for
we're
sure.
gonna
It's been an interesting run so far.
Let's take a bit of time now to talk about this job and what you bring to it. So the first question in this segment is, what experience do you bring to this job?
Oh boy. I bring a lot. I don't have uh, I don't have any political party experience until about a year and a half ago, where I got myself involved. But what I do bring to it is 20 years of volunteer work within my community. This is home for me. I really know it, and I really want to represent and work for my offshore.
So now I wanted to ask you, I know that we're still in the early process of sort of like getting into this election now, this by-election. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think would set you apart from the other candidates who are running? What sets you apart in general as a candidate running for by-election in this riding?
That's an interesting question. As you said, it's still early. All the candidates have not yet been announced, so I can't really, and I don't really want to compare either. I think for me, I want to lead as a compassionate leader. I really want to listen to the people of the riding. It will come out as the election moves on that a lot of the other major parties, their focus is on the party message and the party message. And as Greens, the focus first is grassroots, working for the people within my community, and then stepping back and taking what my community needs and bringing that message to Ottawa and allowing my community's voice to be heard. So
Part of serving as an elected official, as you mentioned, is serving the people, serving those living in your riding, and especially you're bringing their voice to Ottawa. So, a few questions about how you want to serve the people if you are elected. So, first off, what's something that the people of Mississauga Lakeshore need that you want to get done if elected, and you want to bring to Ottawa for them to get done for them?
yeah. So as you had mentioned earlier, and one of the big things I see within my community every day, our riding of Mississauga Lakeshore is seeing change, unprecedented change that we haven't seen in over 50 years, right? We have a lot of infrastructure happening, we have a lot of development happening, and the communities, they're angry, they're afraid. I think there's a lot of changes happening, and people don't feel like they have control of any of it. So I'd really like to help open up communication so that there's more insight. We actually have within our riding the Lakeview development, which was actually developed by the community. The problem is that they keep facing pushback from different levels of government and whatnot on higher densification and trying to change it. But they have done such a beautiful job that I want to just help continue to support them and what they need as part of our riding. Yeah.
And finally, now I wanted to ask you, what's an accomplishment that you have achieved that demonstrates why you'll be a good elected official if the people choose you?
Okay, this had to be your hardest question. I just have to say, because thankfully you presented me with the questions beforehand, and I found it a really hard one to pinpoint because in life we do a lot of things. But I think the hardest thing was I have raised three independent, self-assured, and confident children, and life is always unpredictable, right? And life always throws, I think, well, let's just say raising my three kids is probably my best accomplishment. That's why. But life always throws stuff at us, and we always need to learn to be, or need to know we're supported. And as MP, I want to do for the community what I've done for my children, right? Allow them to allow the community to grow as it needs to, but to do it feeling supported, whether it's through financial supporting of the government or whether it's just through support of how do we need to connect the community with different resources, or or even just being like their cheerleader, right? I am so proud of the community that I'm surrounded by every day, and the people that we have a lot of community involvement, and the people that have built such strong organizations within the riding, that I'd like to be that cheerleader for them to continue that and ensure that they feel supported. So
Thank you, Mary, so much for joining me today.
it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Vincenzo, for what you do, because I think we need to have more of this conversation within politics. So thank you.
Well, it's so important, and I'm sure that the viewers have really enjoyed hearing what you have to offer to them. So, if you liked hearing what Mary Kidnew had to say and live in Mississauga Lakeshore, you have the opportunity to vote for her on election day. So make sure to check with your local election officials, Elections Canada, as more details become available, because I'm sure more details will be coming available soon about election day and voting process and all that. So stay tuned for that soon. So to stay updated, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at VC Productions 25. Check out my website, VincenzoCalla.com. Make sure to like, subscribe, and choose to get notifications here on YouTube. The Political Job Interview is a VCalla production. So until the next video, I'm Vincenzo Calla, signing out.